And subhanAllah, I think like if there's any person I want on the plane that can, add, some sort of value from like a physical strength perspective or protection, it's Habib. There's nobody else that you would want in that situation.
It's crazy because Elon Musk, he has all this money, and he thinks like because of his money he could do anything he wants, just push any agenda he wants. Just like Allah mentions in the Quran, يَحْسَبُ أَنَّ مَالَهُ. He thinks like because of his money he's like immortal.
The inauguration, people behind Trump and his inauguration, whether it was Elon Musk or, Mark Zuckerberg or all these people, all
Jeff
these different,
Bezos. Yep.
yeah, exactly, like those big corporations, right? And you're like, well, why are those people behind you, right? Why are they so important? Why is this day so important to them, right? Because it's a system that is, directly or indirectly benefiting them, right? And any kind of disturbance to that is a problem to them, right? And they're going to try to eliminate that problem.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome, brothers and sisters, to our newest adventure here at Ummahs Revival. As you guys have followed us on Instagram, TikTok, and other social media platforms, you guys are very familiar with the work that we do, with the content that we're interested in. And so some of the brothers here, we thought that it might be a good opportunity to get into YouTube podcasting and start, having a little bit more longer discussions amongst ourselves, but also invite, scholars, influencers, other people that have different experiences, invite mashayikh, different, students of knowledge, and bring them here in this setting to have the discussions that we all want to have for the sake of reviving this ummah, right? As the channel's name kind of refers to. So this is going to be our first episode. And as you guys know, my name's Hayyan, originally from the Chicago area, actually, back home from Pakistan, right? But then from the Chicago area and then currently in the Ohio area. I consider myself a student of knowledge, consider myself as an activist in the community, try to, be involved in the masjid work as well. And through that, I got the chance to meet these amazing brothers right here. And as we, continue to have different episodes, you'll get to meet, some different brothers as well. But, joined with me today are two of our co-hosts, Tate and Zakaria. So go ahead, brothers, introduce yourself, and then we can kick off this episode.
Yes, for sure. I think we've known each other for a lot longer than your move to Ohio, but nonetheless, inshallah, great brothers. My name is Qatada. I'm originally from Syria, the blessed land Sham, from the region that started the whole revolution. That alhamdulillah, it's great to see what happened there. I work in the Chicago Greaterland area. I'm a resident here, again, student of knowledge. Alhamdulillah, we continue to pursue our knowledge and ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us more knowledge and acquire more knowledge. Yeah, just trying to do our part in the Ummah's revival, right? So that's part of what we're trying to do here as well.
I love it.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. My name is Zakaria, and I'm originally from Somalia, but I was born in the States. And when I was like around 9-10, I moved to Cairo, Egypt, and was mainly studying like Quran and Arabic there. And alhamdulillah, I was able to finish the Quran and memorize it.
MashaAllah, got a hafad here.
No, I do what I can. So I graduated from high school in Al-Azhar, and then I came recently back to the States to study computer science. And I live in the Ohio area, and I usually just like to do Islamic work, Islamic community work. And as Brother Qatada said, like revive the ummah, and inshallah
Yes,
one day bring back the big Khilafat, inshallah.
Inshallah. Jazakallah khair, Brother Zakaria. Like I said, guys, I've got the chance to know both of these brothers for a little bit, and inshallah, you see that we have different experiences, from all different parts of the world. Not just from back home, right? But different communities we interact with and different experiences that we've had. And so inshallah, we'll get to share these experiences with you. And like we said, right, bring on exciting guests for you all as well. So I wanted to kick off today's discussion a little bit, lighthearted at first, and then we can kind of go into like the serious topics. But, kind of want to talk about the rise of Islamophobia that we've seen again in the West, America and Europe both. But, kind of to segue into that, what happened, I think about a week ago, and you guys might have seen it, right? Was Habib Nurmagomedov being kicked off of the plane, right? Did you guys get a chance to see that or no?
Yeah, it was terrible.
Any thoughts? Any thoughts on that?
I'm not surprised.
There's a general theme and a general pattern, and I'm sure we'll get to unfolding some of the events that happened. But there's definitely a agenda that's being pushed. A theme of Islamophobia. There's a propaganda. So it might just be one of a series of events.
One thing that stuck out to me, right? Like obviously, subhanallah, there's so many things that went through my mind. Number one, he was sitting in an exit row, right? And apparently they didn't feel comfortable with, a guy with a beard, Dagestani guy, being in that sort of situation. And subhanAllah, I think like if there's any person I want on the plane that can add, some sort of value from like a physical strength perspective or protection, it's Habib. There's nobody else that you would want in that situation.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that, stuck out to me was the way he handled the situation itself, right? You saw how he calmly, at first, he stood up for himself. He was principled. But towards the end, when he knew that he wasn't going to get anywhere with it, he walked off, with a ton of humbleness and humility. And, this goes back to what Islam teaches us, right? It's not that he's just this great person because, he wants to be a great person. It's his teaching. That's what his deen teaches him, right? I don't know. Any thoughts around that? The way he carried himself, or how would you guys have reacted in the situation? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I definitely, and I think us as Muslims, we need to be cautious and understand the fact that yes, there is a big Islamophobia propaganda. There's a lot of people that are trying to push this narrative and show this scary Islam or whatever. And we have to understand that, for some people, that's all they know, right? So you can't really take that and clash and like have a clash with those two people, or like you have someone who has formed a strong opinion based on the narrative that's being pushed, whether it's from the big corporations or the influencers or whatever, and then just take that from the Islamic and just kind of just clash these two together, right? So we do have to have some kind of cushion to where, it reminds me of the story of the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, where there's an old lady, and the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam sees the old lady, and he helps her out with her bags, and she's saying there's this guy Muhammad, and she's cussing, alayhi salatu wasalam, she's cussing him out, whatever. And then, when he puts the bags, he's like, yeah, this Muhammad that you're talking about, it's me, So yeah, you're absolutely right. We have to understand that many of those people, there's a propaganda. This is what they know, right? So maybe when she saw a big beard or whatever, this is her image is, this guy's quote unquote terrorist. This guy's gonna blow up planes. This guy's like, that's what her image is of a Muslim, right? Now, can you go in like, treat it like you're in the ring and like, put your boxing gloves on? Obviously, it wouldn't have the same effect as it would in the ring, right?
Yeah. He gets to take out his frustration in the cage, right?
Yeah, exactly.
He'll smash you in the cage. Which, subhanAllah, you guys saw the fight, the UFC fight?
Yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah, I felt bad for my boy, Omar. I think a lot of people blowing the... Yeah, go ahead, Zakaria. I don't want to cut you off.
I think like he had his right hand was injured.
Yeah. I saw that he broke his hand apparently in the first round. But even then, it was still a close fight. Like I think, Merab did win, but people are acting like it was not that close of fight. Yeah, but alhamdulillah, we had Islam at the end. He sealed the deal. Yeah, so I mean, I know Qatada, you kind of referred to it, the rise of Islamophobia, and that is the overarching theme of today's topic. And then we'll get to Gaza as well towards the end of it because that's kind of hot, right? What do you guys think of Islamophobia? Have you guys experienced it, firsthand? I'll be honest, I don't think I have experienced like major, Islamophobia. I don't know if it's because I've been around, a good amount of Muslims, not been in those like, super secular or super far right areas, right? Super racist areas. But I don't know. What are your guys' experiences? And then we can talk about kind of what the push is, from a political agenda perspective.
Me, myself, I don't think like, just like you, I don't think I ever like experienced like major Islamophobia. Well, like some people, like some professors at school or like in the workplaces, like they're kind of like passive racist, like they don't show it, but it's like kind of indirectly.
Yeah, you're telling me that story of last week, right? Where you had to get a cup.
Oh yeah.
You want to mention it?
So I was on campus at schools, and on campus there's like multiple buildings, and one of the buildings it has a coffee shop where the class I was taking at the time, like on the bottom part, it has a coffee shop. So I needed to use the bathroom, and as you know, us Muslims, like, we need to do istinja, So I didn't have no like water bottles or anything with me. So I went to the coffee shop, and the guy that owned it, like, I asked him for a cup, and then he was like, we sell the cups for like 25 cents. I was like, no problem, I'll pay the 25 cents. And then I didn't have my wallet on me. I left it in the class. It was like in my jacket. So, but I had my phone, so I thought I could just like Apple Pay him, and he was like, we don't, yeah. He was like, we don't have tap. And then I said, okay, just give me the cup because I need to use the bathroom and get back to class. And then I'll pay you when I come down. He was like, that's not how it works. And he just looked at me like disgusted.
Like,
You could tell, like, because I was wearing my thobe and everything too,
Yeah. No, that's crazy. Yeah, it's so weird. It's a plastic cup, 25 cents. Like, first of all, even charging for a cup is crazy. On top of that, he doesn't even believe that you might return back to pay 25 cents. But one thing I like about Zakaria, maybe Qatada, you don't know this, maybe you know this, right? In our viewers, that this guy, mashallah, he wears his thobe, he wears his hat, Muslim attire. I mean, it's not Muslim attire, but it tells people that you're Muslim, right? So, mashallah, very principled guy, and he's not shy to be seen as a Muslim, right? But yeah, subhanallah. So this person, he may not necessarily have, a direct, hatred towards Islam, but there's aspects within the system that we live in, unfortunately, that has pushed a narrative around seeing Islam in a different way, right? Not seeing it as any other religion, but having some sort of agenda to, there's all sorts of stigmas and stereotypes, right? Ever since 9/11, and you think about since then, how much, this country has done against Islam, whether it's the invasions in Iraq and Afghanistan, whether it's, the proxy wars it's done, or whether it's the resources it's stolen of the Muslim lands in Asia and Africa. It's done a lot to try to defeat Islam, right? Both physically, materialistically, but then also ideologically as well. And some of that ideological work that's been done is to the non-Muslims that live here as well, right? So that they are programmed to see Islam in a different way. And, it's not necessarily their fault, right? But, our job is to go and educate them, to show them what the true Islam is, to show them not just the rituals of Islam, right? What does Islam mean as a way of life? And this is what the Prophet ﷺ did with the non-Muslims at his time as well.
Yeah, and I guess I'll go to the to the ideological side. I have a lot to talk about my personal experiences and stuff, but just so we're not taking too much time. Even from the ideological sense, I feel like most people think that, for example, like if Islam were to ever come to like the political sphere, or be in any leadership or commandment, or like where it would be implemented,
where the Sharia is implemented,
where it would be chaotic, right? The world would be chaotic, right? And like you said, it's like that a lot of the times it's shown to people that it's the exact opposite, right? Like, for example, even if it's studying certain aspects from an Islamic lens, whether it's what's going on in Gaza today, whether it's what's going on in Sudan today, whether it's what's going on in Pakistan and Afghanistan and Bangladesh and all these places, to literally even America, for example, right? What's going on in California, how Islam views that, and what the Islamical way. There is Islam offers a solution for the wildfire in California, as well as the poverty people, or the unfortunate people living under the bridges and all the major cities in America. So when you actually sit down from an ideological perspective and from a principled perspective, and you start to say, what is Islam's view on this? What is the solution that Islam has for this? It would change someone's life. And I know it changed my life, when I was going through this teachings, not just Islam from a ritualistic perspective, but from an ideological perspective, an ideology that has a system, a way of life that can fix the people's lives and make life so convenient.
Yeah. Islam is perfect.
Yeah. There's this one saying, right, that don't try to adapt, don't try to change Islam to fit you, right? Change yourself to fit Islam.
Allah.
I wanted to go a little bit more deeper into this, right? So I know we talked about this a little bit before, but recently, in the last 2-3 weeks, Elon Musk, right, and Andrew Tate, two names that almost everyone knows, have been going crazy on Twitter, right? And it's easy for Elon Musk, right, because it's his platform. He's not going to censor himself, right? And what happened originally, to give you guys some background, is that there was a case of rape in the UK, from a group of, Pakistani men, right? And what happened is that case was not handled or given justice, its due justice. But, what people have done is exploited that one case, right? Or exploited that one situation and have basically made it a Muslim issue, right? To fit their own agenda. And what is their agenda? They want to make Europe again, right? They want to go back to their golden ages, if they call it, right? I'll call it the dark ages, right? And they want to, make Europe white again. They want to get rid of all of these immigrants, right? And people in Europe have been there, especially the Muslims, right? They have been there for much longer than Muslims have been in America, right? People went to Europe, first. And so you see this push now that they want to make Europe, for Europeans, they want to get rid of the immigrants. Kind of the narrative that we have in America, unfortunately, with Mexicans that come in, right? I'm not saying I hold these views or any of the people here hold these views, but you hear this sentiment from people like in the Republican Party, right? So Elon Musk, who has nothing to do with European politics, right? Clearly, he's in Trump's administration now. He's pushing his views all the way in Europe on the biggest platform where he owns the narrative, he owns the platform itself. And he's continued to make these crazy claims. And then he's made claims about Gaza as well, about supporting, and we saw this, right? He went to Israel, or he went to the Zionist state with Netanyahu. He got the tour with Ben Shapiro, I believe, right? So you can see that, all of this stuff is kind of corrupting his mind, even though, it was never pure to begin with. And you see Andrew Tate, right? Who was once a Muslim. I mean, I hope he's still a Muslim. But, he recently reverted to Islam, right? I think about a year ago. And, I genuinely gave him a lot of hope and, tried to see him from a brand new perspective. And, he's kind of lost it as well, right? Kind of with the same agenda. And I think he created his own political party called Bruv. I know he's a troll, but yeah, it's kind of the idea that you're feeding young people, right now in today's day and age, social media is the number one outlet for information, right? This is where people get their ideas and their views and their concepts from. And so when you start pushing these things, pushing these ideas that, Islam is dangerous, that the Sharia of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to take people into the dark ages or take their lives backwards, or that, Muslim men are a threat for non-Muslims in their countries, this is obviously going to scare the non-Muslims away, right? And create dangerous environments for Muslims as well. There's been, threats that people like Muhammad Hijab were getting, right? Threats to the masajids, right? That we're going to burn down your masajids now. So what do you guys, Sheikh Zakaria, let me know what are your thoughts on this? And Qatada, tell me what you guys think of kind of what you've seen from Elon Musk. And Andrew Tate, what do you guys think the solution is here, right?
Yeah, it's crazy because Elon Musk, he has all this money, and he thinks like because of his money he could do anything he wants, just push any agenda he wants, just like Allah mentions in the Quran, يَحْسَبُ أَنَّ مَالَهُ أَخْلَدَهُ. He thinks like because of his money he's like immortal. So it's crazy. And then like the things they're saying, like let's make Europe great again, it's like crazy how they could say that and like people support them. But then when Muslims like us were pushing for Khilafat and we're talking about that, it's a problem. Yeah, subhanAllah. What do you think?
I think the idea, or it's kind of going back to the idea of a stealer, right? Like if you're stealing and the system's working for you and you're profiting and it's working out for you, you don't want any disturbance, right? So for a lot of these people, right, especially these corporations, like I don't know if you guys saw that photo of that, the inauguration, people behind Trump and his inauguration, whether it was Elon Musk or Mark Zuckerberg or all these people, all
Jeff
these
Bezos. Yep.
Yeah, exactly, like those big corporations, right? And you're like, well, why are those people behind him, right? Why are they so important? Why is this day so important to them, right? Because it's a system that is directly or indirectly benefiting them, right? And any kind of disturbance to that is a problem to them, right? And they're going to try to eliminate that problem. Now, what is that problem, right? Now, a lot of Muslims and a lot of people that are watching this, whether it's Muslims or non-Muslims, they're going to be like, well, what is the problem, right? Now, we probably don't know what the problem is, but they for sure know what the problem is, right? Because you guys are talking about make Europe great again, right? And I just want to tie these two ideas together. Is But for a long time, the Europeans and the way they look at Islam today is that Islam is what held those people from being the great, right? Islam did not allow capitalism to exist, right? Islam came and it has an economic system. It has a distribution of wealth system where, there is no hierarchy, where there's, billionaires and trillionaires. And then there's, people, 6 floors under poverty line, so that's the biggest threat to them. When Islam comes and says that, hey, there is no more slavery. Now, slavery back in the day was a lot different than slavery today. There's modern day slavery, right? Which is the capitalism slavery, right? So when you come and you say that I can't employ people, for example, the immigrants or whatever, or, whoever, even just average people, right? If I cannot sell this American dream to be this slavery and hide it in a American dream fashion, right? Then that's going to ruin my economy. That's going to ruin my benefits, right? You guys are talking about, he said, right? That he thinks that his money is what makes him immortal, right? That's a direct challenge to me, right? That system is directly challenging the goods that I get out of the Middle East or Africa or whatever. It's a direct threat to me. So what am I gonna do? I'm going to use every single media outlet, every single opportunity or
every tool that you have.
Every tool that I have in my arsenal to invoke this hate or repellingness from anything that's Islam, because it's the ideology and it's a system that threatens my empire, let's say.
Yeah. SubhanAllah, like the last thing you mentioned, right, Qatada, Hizb ut-Tahrir in Canada, they were planning to have a conference, called the Khilafat conference. And it was scheduled for, I think last week. And it was, I think I don't know, which one of the Zionists, intelligence, whatever, tweeted it at Elon Musk. But once he retweeted it, and I think his comment was like, is this really happening in Canada? Are we having radical Islamists having these type of discussions in Canada? And it got a lot of traction. And the mayor of Mississauga and Toronto, I think it went up to their radar. And so, it's interesting that they care so much that they don't even want Muslims to talk about how Muslims should live in the Muslim lands, right? That's what Hizb ut-Tahrir calls for, right? How do Muslims govern themselves in the Muslim lands, right? That's what they call it. That's what their whole agenda is. And it bothers people here in America or here in Canada or here in the UK. Why? Exactly why you said it. So because it will prevent them from exploiting our lands. It will prevent them from taking our oil, our gas, our gold, our diamonds, everything that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed us with, right? And then yeah, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to further add on to you is like, again, like even the understanding of what it is, like they even like they'll tell you that we're against this, but it's even false, right? Like, I've studied Hizb ut-Tahrir and I know what Hizb ut-Tahrir is about, but when you read some of those reports, it was like, wow, like you guys really didn't do your homework, Like, for example, I saw someone saying, they're trying to establish Khilafat or Sharia in Canada, right? I mean, there is no Hizb ut-Tahrir article that you will see that says that.
You know what the problem is, though? The problem is that they're going to tweet this out, and the average Canadian or the average American is going to see that, and they're going to believe that, right? And so it drives this, propaganda. They don't care. There's no morality in these Western societies. It's whatever, like you said, can outweigh their benefit, right? Or whatever benefit can outweigh their harm, right? And so for them, everything is fair game against Islam, subhanAllah. Yeah, I mean, it's a crazy world that we live in, but, the work that we try to do continues. But one thing that I think, I saw this in the comments of Elon Musk, right? And, with the whole situation that was happening in Canada. And so there's this constant, push from, or this reply and this comeback from the non-Muslims, like, oh, if you love Sharia so much, if you love wanting to live by the Quran and the Sunnah, why don't you go back home? Why do you live in our countries? What do you guys have to say about that?
I mean, I think I could speak for literally all of us. I mean, we were born here. This is our country, right? So, I mean, that really doesn't work out for us, but I mean, I can go back to my home city that I was born in if I can't be in this specific city, but I mean, the general notion, right, is like, again, when you think, like, for example, there's this general notion of Saudi Arabia being very, very, very wealthy from all the oil, right? But when you go down to Saudi Arabia, you'll be shocked, and I've been there 4 or 5 times. you'll be shocked the amount of poverty you'll see there, and it's like, it's shocking. I was like, no, well, this doesn't make sense. How is such a wealthy country, there's so much poverty there. Even Dubai, like everyone thinks of Dubai like, oh, Dubai, this country that has, the everyone's always giving such a, high class, that you're basically living, anyone makes it in Dubai.
Go ahead, Zakaria. What do you think about this whole idea that go back to your home?
So like the people that say that, it's actually really interesting because we would have been in our homes in the first place if they didn't intervene, and like start all these wars and like try to take our resources and everything and like cause wars and like civil wars. They're all behind all this stuff. So like if they didn't do any of this, we would all been in our hometowns, in our home countries,
Yeah, no, I think about that all the time, subhanAllah. Like, if you stayed in Europe, right, or if you stayed in, America and you didn't meddle with Iraq, Afghanistan, Sudan, Somalia, Egypt, all of this, right, we would be happily living as Muslims, right? The other thing I think about is these people are immigrants themselves, right? They forget, okay, maybe not, they're not the first ones in their family, but, their great grandfathers, right? They came to America and they massacred the people that lived here, the Native Americans, and they tortured them, they killed them, they tried to wipe them out. And it's the hypocrisy is something that you'll see like throughout, repeating itself over and over again, right, in every statement. But this is characteristics of shaitan, right? The hypocrisy. So yeah, it's not surprising, and we understand the challenges and we understand the reality, and we try to move forward. Any other thoughts on this topic about?
Yeah, it's crazy. Like, I don't know why they feel so entitled to the land. It's not. They're just like how you were saying. They're all like immigrants. Like, we're considered like third, like first generation as well. So like, so it's crazy that they think this land is theirs just because they're a certain skin color, or like they're from a certain
a certain skin color, right? That's the criteria. Fortunately. And what I was going to say was that even this idea, right, of going back home, let's take it like from a Muslim's perspective, right? Because sometimes you see some Muslims that are, I've had these conversations with people where I'm telling sometimes that, we need to live by the Sharia of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We need to, only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can legislate. You can't take part of the book and disobey part of the book. And so we need to live as Muslims in all aspects, right? Not just in my house, not just in the masajid, but how I work, how I solve my problems, how I solve the affairs of the people around me. All of these things, they need to be handled from an Islamic perspective, right? And so some Muslims will sometimes, push back and say, well, you can go back home and you can go live, back home if you want to, right? And you shouldn't be here. Some people, they say that, if you want to live under Islam, you want to live under Sharia, I'm talking about even Muslims now, right? They say that you should go back home. You should go live in Egypt. You should go live in Saudi, how you were saying, right? And
Egypt.
They're very oblivious. They're very oblivious to the reality of these nations themselves, right? They're like, okay, the Constitution says we're going to live by the Quran and the Sunnah, and Bin Salman said, our Constitution, Quran and Sunnah, but they don't look at the reality. The reality is that these states are built on riba. The reality is that these states are funding American, Western-based projects, whether it's LGBTQ, whether it's materialism, consumerism, wherever you look at, right? So these are not Muslim, lands. They're not governed by Islam, and this is not what we want, right? A lot of people, they put this notion or this idea that, it's haram to live in the West. It's haram to live in America unless you're giving da'wah. They make this condition, right? You can only live in Darul Kufr unless you're making da'wah. My problem or my challenge is that I'm not disagreeing. I do think we should be giving da'wah everywhere we go. My problem is that there is no Darul Islam to live under, right? You're saying, yes, this is Darul Kufr. I fully agree this is Darul Kufr. But so are the Muslim lands today. It's not just the 100% Muslim population that makes the land Darul Islam, right? Darul Islam has other conditions. And one of the biggest conditions is that the people, the land, they have to be governed and be ruled under the Sharia of Islam. And this cannot be something that is, you give and you take a little bit, right? It has to be something that's comprehensive. So, yeah, I just kind of wanted to throw that out there. I don't know if you guys have any thoughts around that, if you guys have these discussions.
Yeah, but the problem with that is they say, like, for example, Saudi, they say they rule by Sharia, And we
Yeah.
can clearly see it's not fully Sharia, but they say it's considered Darul Islam if it's even like implemented halfly or like just a little bit of it.
Again, without getting too much into detail, because this needs a whole podcast by itself, right? But
Yeah.
I think Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us many examples in the Quran and the story of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and even some of the Sahaba, right? Like, for example, Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam, where, for example, the idea of idols was, there are, they get us closer to God, and they're, this associated with God, right? And although at face value, this is kind of, you're just supposed to believe this, right? So, like, some people tell you, there's Sharia in Saudi, right? Or there's Sharia in Dubai, right? But then, he comes in, and, Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam, and, even back when he was a little kid, like, they used to clean up the stones and the idols and stuff. And, he came to this realization that this isn't a God, right? And I think that's, a lot of times that's what we have to do, right? Is like, well, is this really Sharia, right? Like we have to actually examine, what's being said
Use
here,
your intellect, right? Allah
Yeah.
subhanahu wa ta'ala give us a brain to think.
God, they gave us the intellect for, and He gave us all these examples that a lot of times you're like, okay, well, I mean, if it's Sharia, why are there borders that I have to make sacred more than blood, for example? Like, you look at the example of Egypt and Gaza today, right? Well, there's clearly this line that's drawn in the sand that's more important to me than my brothers being killed next door, right? Same thing in Jordan, same thing in Syria, same thing in, well, Lebanon is a different situation, but in general, Saudi has borders with the Palestine. All of these things is like, it questions you, right? It's like, yeah, you're saying this, but in reality, it's not this, right? And you really have to provoke your intellect to come up with these conclusions, right? And sometimes you just kind of, if the brother that you're having this conversation with, or is a sincere person, you can have, you'll get them to understand, right? But if not, if they're not sincere, there's
Yeah, Jazakallah khair, Qatada, and you kind of hit the nail on the hammer, right? Use your intellect. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us this, and He reminded us throughout the Quran, throughout the examples of the Anbiya that came, before, and even Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and even the Sahaba. You see that they are very rational in their thinking, and they're not just blind followers, right? Of course, we sami'na wa ata'na when the the hukum is there, but we try to understand the reality. We try to see, we don't take things blindly, and be fooled, right? And unfortunately, there's this big madkhalism type of problem, right, where you can't speak up to these rulers and can't say anything bad about them because you're doing khuruj against them. But it's missing the bigger picture. I wanted to, you talked about Gaza, and this is kind of the last topic that we can kind of end on, is that you saw for 15 months now almost, right, this genocide repeat itself. And I say repeat because it's happened in the past, right? We've seen that for 75 years this occupation has lasted, and this is not the first time when we saw a massacre or a genocide. But this latest one, almost 15 months, constant bombardment, constant killing, carpet bombing upon our brothers and sisters. Now, you think about the fact that, again, use your intellect. Look at the land, okay? This is a tiny piece of land that is able to do this while surrounded by Muslimin, millions of Muslims, right? Not just weak Muslims. And even if they're weak, they still have an obligation to go, right? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that we don't compare ourselves, to enemies just in numbers. We look at ourselves with the capability in terms of, the willpower that we have, and we trust Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the victory comes. And we see this numerous times in the history of Islam, right? It's not the numbers that gave us the victory, but still, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us the numbers. He gave us the resources. He gave us the strategic, areas of land. And still, the hukam al-Arab, the hukam al-Muslimin, they have betrayed Gaza. We witnessed this for the last 15 months, and wallahi, times got, I shouldn't complain. I was going to say, it gets difficult to see this, but that's the least of, the worries. What do you guys got to say about this genocide and what we've seen for the last 15 months?
Yeah.
And then going into kind of like the ceasefire that we just saw this past 2 days, right?
Yeah. I guess I'll go quick because I don't want to. I'll let Zakaria go after me. Starting from the ceasefire and working back, I want to express that I from wholeheartedly, I am happy for Gaza. I think this is an amazing victory for Gaza. Gaza has proven that it has defeated the whole world. It has been steadfast against all the conspirators against it. This is truly a symbol of Iman, of steadfastness, Tabat, and it's truly deserved, right? 15 months later, I mean, it's truly deserved, right? Now, where I do start to have an issue is when, people try to take credit, right? People, like whether it's, people who raised money or whatever, and, they feel like this is, some kind of big accomplishment, or for the Ummah in general, right? And I don't see it like that, to be honest. I don't see to the point where, the people of Egypt or the people of Syria or the people of Jordan or the people anywhere in the Muslim world or even in the West, right, where we can see this as a victory from our end, right? Yes, we're happy for Gaza. We know what Gaza did, and this is a great victory for Gaza, and it's a win for Gaza, inshallah. But for us, it is a terrible, terrible, terrible loss, right? That this is a shame mark that will be written on our books and our history forever, that we've abandoned our brothers and sisters. We've abandoned Gaza for 15 years, right? If you can think of that and still be happy and celebrate and feel like you've done that, 15 months later, we've had a ceasefire, but for the cost of 70, 80, 90, 100, maybe even, way more than that. I think the number is way higher than that. Deaths. Do you think that 15 months later, a ceasefire is equivalent to that? And what we did as Muslims is worth us celebrating and sharing this victory with Gaza? My opinion is no. And Allah Zakaria, that's I don't want to express more than that, because I'm very passionate about this, and it was very unfortunate to see some people go out in the streets, and even here in the US or UK or whatever, and celebrate this as if we as a collective Ummah, got this victory. But when you look at it, really, the Ummah wasn't anywhere in the picture when it comes to this battle, all right? It's not in the amount of money you raise in donations. It's not the amount of masajid that made dua for Gaza. That's not how this victory is measured.
Yeah, you really said it all there. It's interesting what you said, how the Ummah, they like take this as a victory, but they weren't there in the picture when they were fighting, when everything was happening. And I seen a lot of people, like especially in the Arabic media, they're calling Hamas like cowards, and like that they came out after the ceasefire was signed and everything, and they're just sitting in their homes, not knowing what Hamas did for the whole Ummah. And Hamas, they were on the ground from day one, fighting against the Zionists, doing everything. And even when the hostages were coming out, I don't know if you guys seen, but they gave them like certificates as if they were the ones that that made the deal, for the ceasefire. Yes, what you were saying, as we should be happy for Gaza as an Ummah, but we shouldn't be satisfied. This is just like a chance for us to regroup our forces and to how do you say the word? To re-strategize, and because Quds isn't liberated yet, and that's the ultimate goal, for us to liberate Quds, inshallah, and the rest of the Islamic countries. So until then, we shouldn't be satisfied, and we should always be strategizing to see how we can do that.
Yeah. No, well said, both of you brothers. And we saw people criticize Sham for so many years, right? They said that you guys have both. I mean, I know, Zakaria, you've been in Egypt when the revolution started, right? We've seen the revolutions, and we saw, especially in Sham, how much the people sacrificed and how brutally they were met with the regime of the Assad. So many people died, so many people were displaced, millions of them. And it was one of the most horrific things, because, honestly, subhanAllah, the genocide, I'll call it a genocide, but it's even worse than that, right? The Syrian civil war, where America, Russia, Bashar, all of these people, they came, France, right? For me, that was the first thing that I've seen, at an age where I'm mature enough to understand what's happening, understand the Islamic concepts, and understand the war against Islam, against the sincere Muslims that have sacrificed everything, and they wanted to live under the Sharia of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. From day one, this is what they were chanting in Sham, right? And I remember this is one of the first things that I saw, and it used to haunt me, these images and these videos of little children being bombarded under rubbles and so on and so forth. And people, my point here is that some mashayikh, or so-called mashayikh, right, and some speakers, they criticized the revolution in Sham. And they said that this revolution is going to bring about destruction in your country, and this is why you don't speak up against the rulers, and this is why you don't, protest, and you don't try to create revolutions. But, we saw that after 13 long years, right, the victory can come like this, right? And I'm not saying that Sham is perfect, but alhamdulillah, we got rid of the tyrant, and we have, I know we have a ways to go still, but we can at least see that the liberation is on its way. We can see that the people removed the corrupt regime, the cancer, and now it's their job to put together the constitution that's built upon the Quran and the Sunnah, put together Dawla Islamiyya, put together people that submit to Allah Azza wa Jal in all of its aspects, including the ruling structure. So we saw this happen in a few days, right? In 2 weeks it happened. And it's a reminder that this can happen anywhere. It can happen in Pakistan. It can happen in Bangladesh. We saw, similar things happen in Bangladesh. It's a reminder this can happen in Gaza itself, right? In Jordan, in Egypt. I mean, there's been a lot of people saying that, Sisi's time is up. I've seen that hashtag kind of coming around, that the tyrant, what is it? The tyrant, your time has come, right? Something like that. So,
جاء الدور يا دكتاتور.
What does it mean?
Like, it's your turn, dictator.
Oh, dictator. Yeah, exactly. So you can see that the Ummah is boiling from every, corner and every angle. The Gaza is at the heart of every, Al-Quds, Gaza, Palestine, it's at the heart of every Muslim domain. Even though, all of the Muslim lands should be, in our heart, Gaza and Palestine, they have a special place because, the Prophet ﷺ, went to Isra al-Miraj, he came there, many of the prophets, before him, they're there. This is a blessed place, right? And because of this, we have, exactly. And so we have, a little bit more of an attachment. And because of what you guys were both saying, we cannot be distracted. We cannot think that this is the ultimate victory. Alhamdulillah, we're very happy. But the people outside of Gaza, the people that don't have, Gaza, they're getting a chance to breathe, a chance to rest, a chance to rebuild themselves. And we can't stop for even, a day. We have to keep going. And the direction we're going matters, right? This is what, I think about a lot, is that you can keep going and keep running into a wall, right? And you're not going to make any progress. So you have to set your objectives in a very, focused manner, right? And your objectives have to be what the idea, it has to stem from the same basis as the idea. And for us Muslims, the ones that have understood the path to revival, they understand that the objective is Islam. And I'm saying it briefly, but, the resumption of the Islamic way of life, right? It's very clear. The method is going to come from the same basis, which is the Quran and the Sunnah, which is the same basis as the objective. And once this is clear to us, we know where we need to get to. It's not just, going in, running into the same wall over and over again, thinking this wall is going to, just collapse, right? No, there's a way. The Prophet ﷺ showed us a way to achieve our goals. So we need to set our goals first. But I think, alhamdulillah, we're waking up as an ummah. I think we're making we've exposed the munafiqeen, right? We've exposed the hypocrites and the tyrants and anyone who's not on the side of, true liberation, not on the side of Gaza, not on the side of the sincere people that have struggled in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's one step of the journey, but we have to keep going. And, all of us play a role in this, right? So in the role of Ummah's revival. So we'll kind of end it off here. Any last words before we depart? Zakaria, Qatada, I'll give you guys a minute and then we'll join you guys in the next episode.
I just wanted to add on to your comment. Salah ad-Din al-Ayyubi, it took him 88 years, or it took 88 years for Salah ad-Din al-Ayyubi, to come and liberate Bayt al-Maqdis, right? So we know this is a struggle that the Ummah is going to have to go through. And alhamdulillah, we can even do it's gonna be at least a whole podcast to talk about the virtues of Gaza and what Gaza has brought onto us, right? And one of these virtues is the fact that the Ummah acknowledges the issues, right? The Ummah acknowledges, and I'll just end up by this. I think Gaza is always going to be the bitter taste in the Ummah's mouth, right? Because it was so unfortunate to see that, when push came to shove and when a situation like Gaza occurred, this Ummah was helpless to do that, right? And that's always going to be, regardless of what happens afterwards, a ceasefire, two-state solution, whatever might come after that. for those 15 months, it's always going to be a bitter taste in the Ummah's mouth that we couldn't do anything for Gaza. And that, inshallah, and by itself is fuel and ammunition for the Ummah to realize that we have to fix something here, right? And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that's truly, like you said, that's the goal, that that we finally figure out that what the goal is, and we're not hitting a wall again.
Zakaria, departing words?
Yeah. So just like Qatada was saying, what Gaza did is made the Ummah acknowledge the state we're in. And I see a lot of people, they're saying, what was the objective of October 7th? Like, why did they do what they did? But this is like the most important thing. Like, the Ummah woke up. They seen like how far back we are. So inshallah, we like build off of that, and inshallah revive the Ummah.
Inshallah. Ummah's revival on the way. Jazakumullah
Inshallah.
khairan. Jazakumullah khairan, brothers, for joining us. Jazakumullah khair, everyone, for listening into today's episode. Feel free to drop us, comments, any sincere nasiha you have for us, but also share, help this page grow, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give you a part of the ajr that we, inshallah, we hope and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept from us and give us the ajr and make you a part of this. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.